Hi everyone, Amber here from Majestic. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are sewing up such a fun pattern. This pattern is brand new. It's called the Travel Buddy and it is from KMG Handmade. So thank you so much, Kristen, for allowing me to film your pattern as well as be a tester. I really enjoyed the process. So this bag was written with if you are right-handed or left-handed in mind. So I am right-handed, so my zipper is on the right-hand side. So for the exterior, it features this front pocket that kind of expands out. It also has a slip pocket here where you could fit a tablet or even like a small notebook with a little tab that comes up to keep it secure. On the back, it has the vertical zipper pocket, which will be against your body. So it's kind of extra secure. It also has the option for the 2D rings. That way you could wear it either way, or if you wanted to attach an accessory here, like a hand sanitizer or something like that. Now, the strap is really clever. It has a 1.5-inch strap at the top down to a 1-inch strap that is adjustable at the bottom. And like I said, it has that vertical zipper on the side. And this is how we access the interior. And inside there are card slots with a slip pocket and another vertical zipper pocket. And one of the reasons why this is kind of your right-handed or left-handed. So say you're wearing it on the front, I'm right-handed, I can reach my zipper easily and reach all my pockets very easily. So this is meant where you could wear it on the front and kind of keep everything secure and keep an eye on everything. Or you could wear it in the traditional way on your back. So it is the sling version. And I'm really pleased with the end result. I chose to use a water-resistant canvas. This is the passport stamps that I carry in my shop. And the interior, the lining, is all a waterproof canvas. So you want to be really mindful because this bag does have binding and the seams can get kind of thick, especially where there's like a strap connector or where the top connector here gets sewn in. So I still want a domestic. I did not have any trouble. I did use foam, but all my interfacing is out of the seams. So I just wanted to mention that because if you were going to pick vinyl or something that's a little bit more sturdy for the exterior, you want to be very mindful. So I hope you enjoy the tutorial. I will have timestamps in the description. So if you want to jump ahead to the different sections. Thank you again, Kristen, for allowing me to film. I will have the link for KMG Handmade for this pattern, as well as her website and all her social media in the description. So I hope you enjoy. If you do, please consider subscribing or giving me a thumbs up. It helps my channel grow and I appreciate it so much. Enjoy! Alright, so I have all my pieces laid out. There are quite a lot of pieces, so I have tried to fit them all in. For all my exterior pieces, I'm using this water-resistant canvas I carry in the shop. It has the PU coating, so it is the thinner kind. And for all my lining pieces, I am using this waterproof canvas. This is the Pro Tough from Walmart that has the PVC backing. I'm also going to use foam as my stabilizer for that back piece. For the gusset and zipper pieces, I am using fusible fleece. I did attach it already, making sure it's out of my seam allowance lines. It's easier if you don't attach it, or it makes it easier to sew, I should say, but I'm pretty sure my machine will go through it and not give me a problem. So you might want to wait to interface if you are using a fusible fleece. So we have all the rest of the pieces here. I have some raw edge marine vinyl cuts for the strap connectors. I'm using the waterproof canvas for my card slots. If you are using a domestic machine like I am, you want to make sure that your materials are thin. So that's why I went with the water resistant canvas, or you could use like a quilting cotton. And even if you're using quilting cotton, you want to keep your interfacing out of the seams. So be very mindful when you are choosing your materials. All right, so here I have all the hardware and materials that I'll be using. I have this 1.5-inch cut of webbing. This is going to be for my upper strap. If you like this, let me know. We used to carry this in our shop and I can restock it. I also have a 4-inch cut for a bottom strap that I'm going to fold using the 4-fold method. I have plenty of zipper tape, 3 globe zipper pulls that are going to match perfect. I have a 1-inch square ring, and it's supposed to be 1.5, but I'm going to adapt it. I'll show you how because I didn't have any 1.5-inch hardware. I also have 2 D-rings, a snap hook, and a slider. The zipper tape, pulls, and hardware are all available in our shop. I have both bias tape and this fold over elastic. I'm not sure which one I'm going to use yet for the binding. You need a cut of gross grain ribbon. I'm using this webbing. I think it will still be thin enough instead of the ribbon. And then we are going to need at least 2 snaps. I have this kit that I grabbed off of Amazon I'm going to be using, as well as rivets, and I'll be using this kit as well. Okay, and so now I have the tools that I'll be using. I'm going to be sewing with this Tex 35 thread from Wizardry Stitchery. It is their khaki color, and I'm going to use this in both the top and my bobbin with a 90-14 needle. I have plenty of clips, a seam ripper stiletto combo, some snips, 3 different marking tools. This is a silver marking pen, a chalk marking pen, and a water-soluble pen. I have a lighter if I need to singe any edges, as well as double-sided tape. And for the raw edges of the vinyl, I do have Mojo Sew's base coat, this tannish color from Angelus, and some Giardini top coat that I'm going to be using for the raw edges. That's not required. I just like the finish. If there's anything else that I'm using, I'll let you know as I go along. All right, so for our first step, we are going to need our back panel exterior and one of our zipper pocket linings. And I have marked my centers. It's a little hard to tell because I used a blue marking pen, but I have marked my centers on the sides and the top of the bottom of the exterior. And on the wrong side, so this is the side that has the PVC of my zipper pocket, I have marked my center on a short side and drew in my zipper box according to the measurements given in the pattern. So this is going to be the zipper on the back exterior. The pattern shows it for left-handed people, or the side that most likely lefties would use, which is showing it going this way. I am right-handed, so if you want it for right-handed, you are going to put it this way. And what we are lining up is that center marking on the short side with our center marking here on the exterior. And there's a certain measurement given from the edge that we're going to place our pattern piece. I am not showing it on camera, so you are going to do that measurement, make sure it's the equal distance or the exact distance that was given, and then hold it in place. So you want your zipper pocket lining right side facing down and your exterior right side facing up. So they're right sides together. This is the wrong side. So once you have it measured and clipped, you're going to bring this to the machine and stitch around on this box that we drew. If you're using waterproof canvas like I am using a Teflon foot. I have found that it helps glide over the PVC backing much better than a regular foot from my machine. And also, you want to make sure that this is really straight, because whatever box we sew, that is the same exact opening that's going to show on the back panel. So if it's crooked, your zipper is going to be crooked. So definitely take time to make sure that this is straight and then stitch going all the way around the box. All right, so I didn't do a time lapse of me stitching the box, but you can see that I've stitched all the way around. And now I have drawn a center line with 2 little triangles towards the corners. And we are going to cut along that line. I like to take my seam ripper and just get it started. And then with a pair of scissors, cut the rest. And you want to snip as close to the corners. So when you get to those triangles, you want to snip as close to the corner as possible. That is going to help prevent the puckering that you sometimes see. So make sure that you're taking your time, but you're not cutting through the stitches. Okay, and then once you have it cut, and I just use these long clips to hold this on when I did the measurement. So now that you have that opening, you're going to pull your lining through. And it might take a minute or two to get it through properly and get it mostly flattened out. And especially depending on your materials. So I'm just pulling through as best as I can and really trying to straighten it. If you are using a cotton woven, you can press this. I could press it with waterproof canvas and water resistant, but I try to not put heat on that as much as I can since it still has plastic on it. So you want to try to make this as straight as possible. I'm going to play with it a little bit more to try to straighten it out, and that way I don't see my lining. And I'm also going to grab one of our zippers and pull. You need one of the smaller zippers for this. All right, so I have straightened this out as much as I can for the most part. And so now I have one of my zipper tapes. I like to cut mine a little bit longer than the pocket I'm sewing into. So you can see it's going to extend past a little bit. And I have my zipper pull here. I am right-handed, so I always open it up, start on the right-hand side, put only a little bit of the teeth in so it kind of balances, and I can push it easily with my pointer and then pull it on, and it's lined up perfectly straight. So now what we need to do is we need to sew this into our opening. So if you want to put some double-sided tape on the edges of your zipper, you can. I tend to just bring it to the machine and center my pocket over it, making sure that my pull is pulled up and between the openings. And I also make sure that my zipper tape is going to be extended above and below this pocket length, just to make sure I'm catching it all. So now I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to top stitch around this box, and I'm going to move my pull out of the way when I do it. That way I don't get like a little bubble or anything. And you can pull the threads to the back and tie them off, but I just am going to backstitch, and I'm using a thread that blends in. So I'm going to save myself that time and backstitch at the beginning and the end. All right, so I have just top stitched around my zipper. Over here is where I backstitch, and the thread blends so nicely that it's difficult to tell. There's a little bit where it's kind of like puckered or rippled. I'm not worried about that, especially when the bag is all put together and the stabilizer, it's going to straighten itself out. So now for the back side, we are taking our zipper pocket and lining the bottom up with the top, making sure our edges are straight. And we are going to sew this completely closed. If yours doesn't quite match up on top, it might be a little bit wavy because of putting in the zipper pocket. That's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew all three sides. So I'm going to take it to the machine with the right side facing up and just peel the exterior back. So I'm going to come up this side, pivot down along the top. When I get to the end, pivot and down to the bottom, closing up all the sides. And this is why I like to leave my zipper long, because not only is it kept right here with our top stitching, I like to make sure it's extra secure in my sides as well. So you're going to sew all 3 sides at the seam allowance given in the pattern. Okay, so we've just sewed up our pocket completely. You might want to open it, just make sure that everything looks correct, that it functions properly. And I'm going to set this aside, and I am going to grab my strap connector facing, and my connector wing. All right, so I have my strap connector wing, and it's interfaced with the Deco-Fill light as recommended. I have my strap connector facing that has the box drawn, and then I have my strap connector. And mine is a little bit skinnier than what yours may be, because for this part, she recommends a 1.5 inch rectangle ring, and I did not have 1.5, so I'm adapting mine for 1 inch. So I have trimmed mine, has the Deco-Fill light in the center, that when I fold this to center, which I can just, the Deco-Fill light is forming a edge that I can just fold it up against, or you can draw your center line and make sure that it's completely straight down the middle. So when I fold this to center, it is going to form a 1 inch strap connector that will fit onto this rectangle ring. And I'm going to show you after how I adapt for the other side, which is a connector for the 1.5 inch webbing. But for right now, you're going to fold your strap connector to the center and take this to the machine and top stitch down each side, and then put it over your rectangle ring and just baste it on. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do both steps. So both the top stitching down the left and the right, putting it over the rectangle ring, and basting the short edges together. All right, so here is my top stitch strap connector. I put it around the rectangle ring and just basted it in place at the end. And so now I have my wing here. If you're using the larger wing, I have the shorter one, you're going to want to find the center. And you're also finding the center here, but I mean like the legit center of it. If you're using the smaller one, you should have your facing with our box drawn, and you're going to put them right sides together, matching up the centers of both. So this is what I mean. If you're using the taller wing, you don't want to line it up with the top. You want to find the center of the actual wing. So this is going to be just like we did the zipper pocket. I'm going to take it to the machine and use a smaller stitch length and stitch all the way around this square here, or rectangle I mean. And if you want, you can pull the threads to the back. I'm just going to backstitch because it's easier for me. All right, so again, I have just stitched around that rectangle and I had drawn my lines in. I'm going to do the same exact thing as I did last time for the zipper. I'm going to use my seam ripper. It's a little bit more difficult because I have some Deco-Fill light on the other side. And then cutting to those corners as close as possible. And it's just so, the thread blends in so well. I'm just making sure that I'm not cutting it. Okay, and so then once you have that opening, so just like we did with the zipper pocket, we're going to pull this facing through to the back. It's a smaller opening, so it might just take a little bit, and especially with the Deco-Fill or whatever you used for your stabilizer on the back. And so the same idea, we're going to try to straighten this out as much as possible. With that Deco-Fill, it really does want to kind of fold back on itself. Okay, so now I need this strap connector, and we are going to insert that. And I'm just checking because I want to make sure I'm using a directional print and make sure that I am putting it in the correct way. So I have made my box smaller. Yours should line up if you're using the 1.5 inch. Mine fits perfectly for that 1 inch where I have adapted it. Okay, so then what you need to do is after you've pulled it through, you're going to pull this up. And so now I want to stitch through my strap connector and the facing right here. And that's going to kind of hold this in place. So it's going to go through that facing and the strap connector underneath. All right, so you can see I have stitched a line here as close to that opening through the facing and the strap connector. And I also did a second line of stitching just further down, making it extra secure. And so this is what it looks like from the front. You can see I have not top stitched around this opening. I guess you probably could have done that if you wanted to. I kind of like it without, and that's also how the instructions are shown. And so now I need my other piece of the wing, and we're going to put these right sides together. So you might need to fold down your rectangle ring or whatever O-ring, whatever you're using here. Mine is going to fit okay because I'm using that 1 inch instead of the 1.5. And so we are going to clip the 3 sides, the top and the left and the right. And then we are going to sew around these, given the seam allowance given it in the pattern. So we're going to leave this bottom part open here. All right, so I have just sewed across all 3 sides, leaving this bottom open. But I just realized that I have placed the rivets ahead of time. These were not supposed to go until after we turn this. It's not a problem, so I'm not going to rip them out. It just means that they won't go through to the backside, and I don't mind that they're going to be hidden in the interior. So if I'm editing this and it looks a little funny or like you notice before I say that, that's what happened. So I'm just trimming down the seam allowance, and on the corners I'm cutting at a diagonal, and that's just going to help it turn a little bit better. Okay, so now we are going to turn this right side facing out. And I'm really making sure that I'm poking out all my seams. And I just take a chopstick here and really give them a good push. Okay, so this is what it looks like. And again, I put my rivets early. You should not have them yet, unless you want them hidden like mine will be on the inside. So now I'm going to take this to the machine and top stitch along all 3 sides and then baste this bottom edge close. If you need to, trim your facing out of your seam allowance so it is not so bulky down here. All right, so I have just top stitched all the way around and basted the bottom closed. So now this is when you'll install your rivets and they will go through to the back side. So when I did it, they're hidden in here. That's not a problem for me. But like I said, the pattern has them, so they go through here. So now I'm going to put that video clip. If it looks a little bit different, that's why, because I accidentally installed mine too soon. So now what you want to do for extra security, either sew a line of stitching across the bottom here or install rivets. And I'm going to grab my stuff to install some rivets. All right, so I have just used my tool from Carolina Little Stitches to mark holes for double rivets. And I have my kit here that does come with the tool so you can set it with a hammer. But I'm going to use my press. So I've already punched the holes. And so I'm going to take my rivet and insert it. And you want to make sure that not too much is sticking out the back. If you have a lot sticking out, you could put some extra like waterproof canvas or something to act as a buffer. And so I'm going to put my top cap on. And these are a little bit brighter than the light gold that I carry, but that's all I had. And I think it's not quite, I don't think it looks that bad. So I have the cam snap press with the dies that I purchased off Amazon. And so I'm just lining that up so I can feel where it is. And then I'm going to press it down. And I'll feel it snap into place or pop into place. And actually, I dented that a little bit, so I'm going to rip that one out. I probably should put a bigger plate in the bottom is what happened. So I'm going to rip that one out, but same process, and fix it and put both the rivets in. All right, so I have just put both my rivets. You can see that I used a bigger plate, a bigger die on the bottom. So I just pulled that first one out using some pliers and redid it. So now they're both great. And so now, all right, so you should have your completed wing with your rivets installed. And now we need our back panel. So we need our back panel right side facing up. You should mark the center of your wing, and you should mark the center of the top here. So I am just lining them up. So you want it with your hardware facing up, so you can see it. And you want it so your wing is pointing down, so the smaller side should be pointing towards you. And I'm just clipping that up top here. And now I'm going to bring it to the machine and sew across the top at the seam allowance given in the pattern. All right, so I have this stitched along the top. I'm just going to set it to the side, and I'm going to grab my bottom connector, which is the long piece that is going to go down across the bottom here. All right, so I have my bottom connector, and I'm going to use the four-fold method because I'm using the waterproof canvas. If you are using vinyl for this, you might want to do the alternate method. Just because this is going to be in the sides, we are binding everything together, and so if it gets kind of thick, so you definitely want to be mindful. So I have drew my center line, and I have put 2 rows of double-sided tape, and I've already peeled it just to be quicker about it. So because it's the four-fold method, I'm folding each side to center. If you're using a cotton woven, you could iron this, and then I'm folding the other side. And I just used the double-sided tape, and I placed it so it will be out of my stitch line. And again, just folding it all the way down to center, and then lastly, folding it on itself. And I'm just putting some clips to help me hold it in position. And then I'm going to take this to the machine and top stitch down both sides of this strap. And I'm going to start with the side that is open with the clips first. So again, just bringing that to the machine and top stitching both sides at the given seam allowance. Okay, so here is my top stitch connector strap. And so now we need to put 2 D-rings on it. And there is a measurement given in the pattern. So we are going to measure that up and place this. I'm going to put my D-rings to the center for now, but we are going to place it at the measurement and just based on the edges for now. We're not stitching anywhere for the D-rings yet. Just holding that in place at the given measurement from the bottom of the exterior material. All right, so I have just basted it on the left and the right. And now I have marked 2 spots for rivets given the measurement in the pattern. So I am moving my D-rings to the end. If you don't want to use rivets, you could sew a vertical line here, and that's just going to keep your D-ring from moving. And that's exactly what the rivets are going to do. But first, all we need are a foam or whatever our stabilizer is going to be. And I'm just making sure it's centered all the way around. Sometimes what I do is put like a line of double-sided tape to kind of hold it in place. For now, I'm just going to kind of hold it here and flip it, because when I install this rivet, I want it to go through the foam, and that's going to help hold that foam into place as well. So again, I'm just going to use my handheld full punch. It will slide through with enough clearance, and then just hole punch. And I am going to use the rivets just like I did before. I still have the larger die in the bottom, so it should be fine. I'm going to use the kit, and I'm going to use the same exact size rivets. I believe the medium ones here will fit perfectly, but just double check with whatever your thickness is. And I'm going to do that part off camera because it's the same exact step. All right, so I have just installed my rivets. That is going to keep the D-ring from sliding. And so now you can trim off the excess on each side. And you can also set this panel to the side for now. We're going to work on the lining. So we're going to need the lining piece that is the back side to this. So the same exact side. And also our other zipper lining. All right, I have my lining piece that will match up to the back. And again, I have it marked the center on the side. I have my zipper pocket lining, and on the back, I've drawn my box. I accidentally didn't realize I didn't draw it far enough. That's why it looks double. And I've marked the center because we're going to do the same exact thing that we did for the exterior, where we line up the side and stitch our box, cut it out, pull it through, and put our zipper. The only difference is for the first one, I had the zipper pull so it was closing up, or if you are keeping it like this as you're working to the left. For this one, we want it closing to our right, or if you're going to work like this, towards the bottom. And that's because when we put this against our back panel, we want it's going to be opposite. So that way both our zippers line up on the same exact side, and it will end up that both our pulls are going the same direction. So you just want to reverse whatever direction you did from the last one. And again, I'm not going to film all this because it's literally the same exact steps as when we installed this zipper pocket here. So if you need to have a reminder, you can use the timestamps and jump back to that. All right, so here's my lining. I have added my zipper. Opening it, just double checking. The pull is going to the right, so the opposite way. I've closed up everything on the back side. So now we need our exterior panel, and I'm going to put it so it's wrong side facing up so I can see the foam. And we need to put our lining so it's wrong sides together, and the foam will be sandwiched between. And we're going to clip all the way around and base this. You can mark centers and line it up that way. I'm just lining up the edges, and you'll know you did it correctly because our zipper should be on the same exact side. So that's why that pull had to go the opposite way. If you did it the other way, you'll just have a pull on the opposite side. It makes it a little bit more difficult to get to in the bag, but not a huge problem. So this is what it looks like here. And I'm just going to work my way around. That foam is not like ironed in. It's the only thing holding it is the rivets that I've put. And it does give it a little bit of thickness, but I like it, especially on the back panel here, because it is going to cushion against against your back. So I'm just making sure that I take my time clipping all the way around and that the edges are aligned. Because of the interfacing, how the zippers are in, it might want to bulk up. So I'm just really squishing that down and making sure that it is tucked in there. It should be out of your seam allowances, especially if you're sewing on a domestic. So just make sure that in case you need to trim it. So now I'm going to bring it to the machine and I'm going to sew all the way around at the seam allowance given in the pattern, which will baste the exterior to our lining. Okay, so I have just basted my lining to the exterior. It looks really great. I'm really happy with the foam inside of it. So I'm going to set this to the side and grab my lining part for the card slots. All right, so I'm going to try to show this the best that I can on camera. It's a very long strip for our card slots, and I have used chalk because I can just wipe it off to mark each of my fold lines. And so we're going to fold on each of these a valley or a mountain, which are other words for right side together or wrong side. In the instructions, she labels it both ways. So I like to, when I'm folding them, put a ruler to get a nice crisp edge. But because I'm doing this on camera, I don't want to put the ruler. So I'm going to try to fold it the best I can and may have to straighten it out a little bit off camera. So if we're starting from the top, our first fold is going to be right sides together. So I'm just kind of checking from the edge, making sure that I am folding on that chalk line. And I'm just going to put a clip there to hold it. So if I was using the ruler, I would just like lay this flat, have the ruler here, and then you can kind of like push. And then you want to make sure your edges are aligned and you're keeping this as straight as possible. All right, so that one is our first. That is right sides together. Again, I'm just clipping this to keep it so I can see what I'm doing and keep it aligned. So now our second line, it is wrong sides together. So we are folding this onto itself. And you'll see that this is now kind of formed a pocket here, a slip pocket, that valley, and now this is a mountain fold. And so I'm just going to take that clip on the side to help me keep it in place. And so if I'm following this all the way across and keeping the edges aligned, it should make a nice straight pocket. Okay, so now we are on the third one. Again, that is a valley fold. So it is going to be the right sides together. And I can take that same clip. And I'm using waterproof canvas. It's going to get a little bit thick, but I know my machine can handle this. I believe in the instructions, she does recommend cotton, quilting cotton. So just be mindful of that as you're doing this. Okay, so now we're on our fourth one, which is another mountain fold. So again, here's my line. And as this is coming together, you're really going to see the slots forming. And we are just going to keep following this pattern. This side looks a little crooked, so I'm just trying to straighten out the best that I could go. Maybe when I cut it, it wasn't so straight on the side. And again, I could take a ruler after and really like align it. All right, so we just did our mountain fold. So now we have another valley, which is right sides together. It's just easier for me to work from the back. And basically each line you're just alternating. So if it was a mountain, now it's a valley, and vice versa. Okay, so now I already have this line. I'm clipping so close to it that this is now a mountain. So it's almost exactly where I need it to be. Okay, we have one more valley and a last mountain. So right sides together for this one. And I can definitely, like I said, see it's getting a little bit thick, but it's okay. It's working out. Nice. Clip that one a little bit too high, I think. Oh no. So this last one is a mountain fold, and this is where it gets a little bit different how she does the pockets, because this is going to pull it and kind of cover those slip pockets. So you're not doing anything wrong if it doesn't follow and fit right underneath. So this last one is a mountain, which is all the way at the top. So I'm going to use another clip. So you know you did it correctly if basically your card slip pockets are hidden. So what we need to do is very carefully, we just did all these folds, right? But very carefully, we need to go to the machine, and I like to do it one at a time, folding away from each other. And we need to top stitch on every mountain. So I'm going to top stitch here, fold this away, and then top stitch 1, 2, 3 more. And you want to make sure that you're folding them away from each other so you're not sewing through your pockets. So I'm going to bring that to the machine and top stitch across all of the mountain folds. So all the ones that come up top. All right, so I have just top stitched for all the card slots. So if you pull this away, you can see that they are all stitched. You want to double check that they are not sewed together and that they're usable. And the other thing I did was mark the center. And that is because we are going to top stitch down here to divide our card slots in two. And I'm only going to the bottom of the card slots right here. I don't know why I traced all the way. We're not, because this is going to fold up. So we do not want to stitch below this last valley fold. So it's going to be through those 3 card slots here. All right, so I have just basted down, stopping at that bottom fold. And so now I'm going to take my last mountain fold and bring it all the way back up. So that creates like a slip pocket and hides your cards. And so now I'm just going to carefully clip the edges, because what I need to do is bring this to the machine and just base stitch down the sides. And you only need to base stitch as far as where the card slots stop. So just this portion here on the left and the right side. All right, so I have just basted down the sides. When I open this, you can see the card slots inside, and then this slip pocket that you could use for bills or anything else. So now we need to add our sides here. They're called the front lining panels. I realized I didn't cut my thread. So I have them here, and my card slots might be a little bit longer, and that's to give you some leeway depending on the material you're using, how thick or thin it is. It will fold up differently. So we are going to align these on the left and the right hand side, right sides together with the top. That way, if there is anything overhanging, it's on the bottom. And I'm going to do that for both sides. I'm just turning it, turning my stuff so it's facing me. It makes it much easier for me to clip. Okay, so now I'm going to bring this to the machine. Now I'm going to do two things while I'm there. I am going to sew on the exterior sides at the given seam allowance. And then I'm going to open these up and I'm going to top stitch on the sides where these panels are, on the left and the right. All right, so I have just added those top panels and press them out and top stitch down the side. So now I just need to trim off this excess here. I'm going to do that off camera so that we don't give away measurements. And then I'm going to set it to the side. And we are going to need our pieces for our front pocket. So our front pocket piece and the side trims. All right, so now I have my front pocket D pieces. This is the exterior and the lining. And so we're going to put them right sides together, aligning the top. And again, I'm just making sure that I clip them accurately. Great. And so we are going to sew along the top here at the given seam allowance. We're not worrying about the sides or the bottom yet, only along the top. All right, so I have just stitched along the top at the given seam allowance. And so now we are going to flip these open so that way they are raw sides together. And we are going to top stitch. So I'm just making sure that I really press that out. You can see over here where it wants to kind of fold down in. So sometimes I take that chopstick and just run it along that crease to really make sure that getting it accurately lined up. And nothing wants to kind of cave in on itself. Okay, and I'm just going to put a couple flips to hold it. Again, just making sure this edge is out. All right, so now they are wrong side together. And I'm going to bring this to the machine and top stitch along the top part here. All right, so I have it top stitched across the top. And so now we need our front side pocket trims. And it doesn't matter for me, because they're cut at an angle, I did not cut them so that way they line up. So we are going to put them right sides together and we're lining up with the bottom corner. So again, I'm just going to turn that so I can make sure I see the edge clearly and clip. And also I should say that if you have a tag, like a bag tag, you might want, while this is still open and not closed, you might want to center it here, or think about the flap that we're going to do where you would want to put it. Now would be a good time. And then again, I'm making sure this side is lined up. And again, bringing this to the machine and stitching at the given seam allowance along both sides here. And we're not folding this open and top stitching yet, so just sew along the edges. All right, so now they are stitched along the sides. So we're just gonna set this to the side for a moment, and we need our front flap piece, our exterior and the lining, and we are gonna flip them right sides together. I have this interfaced with the Profuse from Wall Whack, and it's out of the seam allowance. And I'm just clipping all the way around. And so we're going to take it to the machine and we're going to stitch all the way around the edge. We're going to leave the top flat or straight part open. There are multiple flap shapes. I chose this rounded one, but regardless of the shape you choose, you're going to do the same process. So we're just stitching around here, leaving that top part open at the seam allowance given in the pattern. Right, so I have just stitched all the way around. If you have a shape that has like edges or corners, you definitely want to trim them. And once you trim them, we are going to turn this right side facing out. And this one is going to be not really tricky, but it might take me a few minutes because it does have that stiffer interfacing on it. And so right now I'm just using my fingers to poke everything out. But now that I have it mostly turned, I'm going to take my chopstick again and just rub it along the edges here. That will really help everything poke out. And if you are using material that you can press, you might want to give it a good press so it's nice and crisp. Okay. And so now that I have that turned, I am going to take it to the machine and top stitch all the way around the edges here using a Teflon foot just to help it slide through a little bit easier. And I'm not closing up the top yet. All right, so I've just top stitched all the way around. You can close up this opening if you want. I just left it in case I need to add some extra interfacing before I put my snap later on. But I'm going to set that to the side because we need our tablet secure piece, and I have vinyl for that. And our gross grain ribbon, I'm using seatbelt webbing, which is rather thin instead of gross grain, and I'm hoping it just isn't too thick and works. So what we need to do is align our ribbon to the center on one of the short edges and fold this in to the middle. And because of the thickness, I don't think it's going to fold all the way. And I'm not clipping all the way down because what I'm going to do is take this other end to the right side and align that top part here. And then now I'm going to take it to the machine and stitch across this top short edge. All right, so at the machine, I attempted to stitch this and my vinyl and the webbing was giving me so much trouble. So I'm just going to kind of show you real quick, but I think I'm going to adapt it for my bag. Once you have this stitched across, your edges should still be folded in. And now you're going to turn it like right side on itself. And you can see where mine's like fraying out, but it should be like a nice clean seam there, especially with the ribbon. And so now, once you have this folded, you are going to top stitch down the right and the left hand side. And this is going to create like a really secure tab because you have the vinyl and the ribbon between it. And I'm going to link the video here to Kristen's because she does an amazing job of showing this. And I'm a little worried that this gets kind of thick for my machine as a domestic because it's going to end up going behind this flap and it's going to work where it comes like this and closes like secures the tablet. So I'm going to try to adapt it and see how it works for my domestic. I have just cut a piece of material that if I doubled the length of this, it would be that same size. And I put a piece of Decoville down the center because that's really what this piece is for. It needs to be able to secure and support a snap. So that Decoville is going to give that security for a snap. So once I have these on the side, and like I said, if you are using the vinyl and you know it's going to work for you, definitely just follow the instructions in the pattern. This is me making an adaptation so that it will work with my machine. And I'm just using the double-sided tape because I'm not going to top stitch this. And the other thing is the type of snaps that I have. It's not a solid cap on both sides. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So now that I have this like this, if I fold it in half, I can fold it in half and top stitch. But this is going to end up becoming the tab. So in the instructions, she has you put the snaps on at the end. So you'd have one snap here and one snap at the bottom so that it would fold down and snap onto itself. So I want to do that same thing, but before I top stitch this down, I'm going to add my snap now, and I'll show you why. So I have this snap kit, and I'm going to be using the gold. And so you have 4 pieces that you need. This will be the outside snap. This goes here for the top, and then this is for the bottom. Now mine have this opening. So if I install this on the back, you're gonna see this. If I do it how the pattern tells you to wait till the end, I don't want to see this. I want this hidden. So what I need to do is I'm using directional fabric. So I'm making sure that when this gets folded down, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to read it. When it gets folded down, it will snap on itself. So I need to add the snap here. So what I'm doing is I'm going to put this between the 2 layers. This is going to get sewn in, so you want to leave yourself space down at the bottom. And there's a measurement. You can jump ahead to where the snap goes if you want to try it this way. And I'm just eyeballing the center. And so now I am inserting, and because I have that Decoville in there, it's already secure. I don't need to add anything. So now I'm inserting that bottom piece, and this piece with the little hat goes on top. And so now I have a toolkit here. It came with the hand press tool, so you can use a hammer, you can use what's it called, an arbor press, or I also have the kit or the cam snap press. So I don't need to use this. I'm going to grab my press and then I'm going to set this. But if you're using the hand tools, you would want to put the one with the little bump underneath it, like that. And then the one that has the indent fits perfectly over, and you would just hammer it down or use the arbor press. All right, so I have just set that bottom of the snap. And so now you see this is what it looks like from the back side. And I just prefer this way because I don't want this being visible on my bag. So I'm still folding these back to center, and we're aligning all the edges. And I am going to write to the machine and top stitch down both the left and the right side. Because of this snap at the bottom, I'm probably going to have to use maybe a different foot just so I don't bump into it. But it will be fine. And the top part, I'm not going to do now because that doesn't matter. It's going to go through both layers because this is going to end up being on one side and the flat part on the other. If you're using like a cam snap, the plastic ones, I wouldn't mind if this showed through the back side, but because mine isn't flat on that other piece, that's the only reason why I'm putting it in the interior. So I'm bringing it to the machine and just top stitch down both sides. All right, so this is what it looks like with it top stitch. And I'm really happy with how it came out. I'm going to set it to the side. I'm not going to put my top snap on yet. I'll do that at the end. but also because just like what we did with this bottom one, this is going to end up being our front center pocket where the flap comes down and snaps onto here. And so for the same reason, if I install it at the end, I'm going to see the backside on my lining. So while I have this still open, I have found the center and then put 2 marks. That way I can have 2 different settings of where my flap. So one when it's open, one when it's closed, or one that's full and one when it's not. And I have just put an extra piece of interfacing in there. And I'm just kind of scrunching it so I can fit my hole punch in. Because again, I don't want to accidentally hole punch into my lining. And so I'm going to repeat this same process for installing the bottom snap piece like I did for that tab, just with this pocket here. All right, so now that I have my 2 holes punched, I can just follow the same process. I can put them through from up between the lining. So I'm going to install those 2 pieces that are going to look just like this here. And that way that part will also be hidden. I'm going to do it off camera because it's the same exact process. All right, so I have just added the bottom portions of the snap. So you can see that you don't see anything on the lining because it is all between the layers. So like I said, you could do that now or save it to the end. I just measured down the center. You can take the flap later on to kind of really get an exact measurement. So I just eyeballed it. So now what we need is our front pocket here and one of our front slip pocket B's. I chose this one because, or I chose to do it as the exterior because this is going to lay on top and you are going to see a little bit of the print here. So I chose to use the exterior. You do not have to. So what we're going to do is open this up and we're not top stitching anything yet, but we do want to make sure our seam allowances are pressed towards the outside. So I'm going to press them back, like on the left side to the left, and we're lining up the top. So I'm lining up the corners here all the way across that straight edge, and making sure that seam allowance is folded in. We don't want to see any raw edges. And then we're going to do the same thing on the right-hand side. And because this pocket's going to be like a 3D pocket, so it's okay that it's bulging out. You're not doing anything wrong. And so now I'm lining up the corners here and the rest of the top straight edge. Okay, and then we're going to take that to the machine. And we are just going to stitch across right here and right here using the seam allowance given in the pattern. All right, so I have just base stitched them up top. So now I'm going to align the sides because we want to press this flat so we can top stitch here. So I'm making sure that my sides are aligned so that way when I top stitch, it will be straight. So now that they are clipped, I am going to press this down and top stitch on each side here. So on this left side and then on this right side. And as I'm doing it, I'm just, you can see, moving that pocket out of the way to make sure that it is straight. Okay, so I have just top stitched down the right and the left side. So now we need to align our bottom. I have marked my centers. The only thing is, if you look from the back, my pocket is kind of like hanging down a bit. So I'm going to do my best to center it but I'm probably going to have to trim some of this off after. And that's just coming from where I have cut it if the pieces wiggled a little bit. So that's my inaccurate cuts. So I'm just going to make sure that when I do, I am catching that backside, and we're only stitching across the pocket here. All right, so I forgot to hit record for the time lapse, but I've just basted it across, and you can see I actually sewed it from the backside to make sure that I was catching the whole bottom edge. So now what we need to do is we need to base basically our sides to this back panel. So we can see here where the curves are. So I'm going to sew it with this side facing up and just base the edges around the curve. And then again, continuing over here and up the side. Our middle is already basted, and then I'm going to trim this off afterwards. All right, so just basted the sides. You can see this is the back. Here it is from the front. So I am just going to trim off around these curves. And because I had some overhang with the pocket, I am going to trim that as well. So basically we want it to be the same exact size and shape as that lining panel that we have. And it's blending together so well right here. I'm trying to be extra careful as I go around the curve that I'm not snipping too much. All right, so this is what it should look like from the front. It is that 3D pocket. You can kind of, if you want to give it like a little press to have it basically like not fold down, but so that it lays a little bit flatter or gets used to having that seam there, you can definitely do that. Okay, and now I'm going to grab my flap. All right, I have grabbed my flap here and I've marked the center, and I have marked the center between our two side pieces. And so now we're going to line up those centers, and for now I'm just going to tuck my flap right inside the pocket and make sure they are aligned. And so you really want it to be centered. It fits like exactly between. So now I'm going to take that to the machine and just base stitch that into place. All right, so I've just basted on my flap, and now we need our tablet secure strap or tab. And we are going to baste it again to the center. So I have my center marked. I already have my center marked here. And I am going to just clip that in place. And you want it ribbon side down. For me, that is the part that has the snap already. Because when this eventually, it's going to come like this and be able to come down. So ribbon side down to the center. And this is another reason why I adjusted and use the 4-fold method instead of the vinyl here, because you can see this seam is getting quite thick. So I'm kind of happy that I made that change. I think it's going to work better for my machine. So I'm just going to base just this tab now into place here. All right, so I apologize. I didn't do the time lapse when I just basted that on. So now the tab is basted on, our pocket's basted. It's looking really, really nice. So now I need another slip pocket panel B piece. All right, so I have my front panel here with the pocket, and now I have grabbed another slip pocket panel B, and we are going to put the right sides together, lining up the top. And because I have that pocket that is like bulky, I'm just lifting this so I can make sure that I am lining it up evenly. And I'm just squishing the pocket down underneath it as I'm clipping, and it should match perfectly. Okay, and you're going to bring that to the machine, and you are going to stitch across the top at the given seam allowance. All right, and it's just stitched along the top. So now I am going to fold that back on itself so it is wrong sides together. And I am just going to really make sure that I'm getting this seam pushed out, and I'm pushing the seam allowance on the back down. And it gets really thick, especially where our tabs are. So as I'm doing this, I'm also going to lift my tab and my pocket up, because we're going to have to top stitch and we don't want to catch that in it. And that actually helps it fold back a little bit better onto itself. And I'll just clipping it all the way across. And that just helps me when I go to top stitch. And what I'm going to do, because I'm going to do two different things. We're going to have to top stitch across here, making sure our flap is up and our tab is up so it doesn't get caught in that. And then we need to baste stitch around the edge. So I'm just going to clip the sides and the bottom at the same time, because I'm going to do it all at once at the sewing machine. All right, so I'm going to bring it to the machine. I'm going to top stitch across and then continue by base stitching all the way around the rest of the curve. All right, so I have just top stitched across and base stitched all the way around. It looks really great. So happy with it so far. So we're going to set it to the side. We don't need it quite yet. We have one more step that we need to do for this front panel. And you're going to need your last front slip pocket B and your top trim A. And you're going to put them right sides together, matching up the top. And you are going to sew across the top edge at the seam allowance given in the pattern. Okay, so here I have stitched across the top. So now we're going to put this, fold it open with our seam allowance pressing down, so towards the bottom. And we're going to top stitch across here, but before we do that, you are going to add your stabilizer. So I am using that foam. So I have it cut pretty much out of the seam allowances. I just realized that I didn't cut the curve down here. So I'm just going to estimate it. There'll have to be some perfect. And this foam, I don't think I mentioned it before. It's the Naked foam by Pellon. It's not fusible. It doesn't have the layer of fabric on either side. And that makes it way less expensive, or super affordable in my opinion. Not everybody likes it because of how it sews on their machine, and also because how it feels. But with bags, like it's in there, you're not going to feel it, and I don't need it fusible. So for me, it works great. Could be something that you could try and see if it is a good option for you. My machine works well with it. So I'm going to take this to the machine and now top stitch along here on the bottom panel, and that will also catch our foam and kind of fold it in place. All right, so here I have it with my top stitch going across. You can see on the back, my foam is sewed in. So now we need our front pocket piece again, and we are going to place it with its right side up. So basically these become a slip pocket. So this should be right side facing up, and then with our front pocket panel right side facing up. And if we center it, everything should match up perfectly. And I'm just checking to make sure the pockets do appear. So I feel like that is probably a little bit more important, that this part is straight. And then once I have that part matched up, then I'll match up the rest of the sides. Now clipping all the way around. And now I'm just going to take it to the machine and sew at the given seam allowance all the way around from this clip here to this clip over here. And that's going to attach our front pocket to that last slip pocket panel. All right, so we have just face stitched that on. So this is what it should look like. And you can see that now we have a functioning slip pocket here. So now I'm going to turn this over. So my seam is up and we need our pocket that we sewed with the car slots. And we are going to place that wrong sides together. So the back should be against the foam. And I'm right-handed, so I want my cards on the right. If you've been making them towards the left with the zippers, you're going to put it to the left. And if you have centers marked, that would be great. And you can match them up. I'm just matching up the curves. They're pretty accurate. It does make it a little bit puffy because of the foam and the pocket underneath. So if you need to like smush it to make sure that you are, like you can see here, is a little bit off. So you might need to work with it a little bit and really smush it down. There we go. And now that I got that a little bit more aligned, this side should work out a little bit better. So don't be afraid to, really play around with this and get everything lined up. It's better to do it now because it will make your gusset easier. Right, and then once you have it aligned, you're gonna bring it back to the machine and you're gonna sew all the way around at the seam allowance given in the pattern. And just be mindful of, for me, it's getting a little bit thick over here where the pockets all come together. So just be careful as you are going around and stitching it. All right, so now I have it basted. And so I'm just going to set it aside because we're going to need our loop tab. All right, so we're going to make our little loop tab. So in the instructions, she has you cut a raw edge, which I have here, which you're going to fold to the center, and then fold again onto itself. And that is going to become your little tab. I did not want the raw edges, and I also just didn't want it as thick. So I have cut some of my matching exterior water-resistant canvas. I put a little line of the Profuse Stiff from Wall Wax. And how I'm going to make it so there's no raw edge is I'm going to turn my short edges in. And so it's the same exact method, except I just cut mine slightly longer to accommodate where I am turning in those raw edges. And I'm just going to put a clip for now to hold it on, just because I want to make sure my short sides stay folded. And then I'm going to fold the other side into center. So just like we did for the first side. And I'm just putting another clip to hold it. You could use some double-sided tape, but because this is going to be so small, if I do, it's going to end up in my stitch line. Okay. So then now once they're both to center, now we're folding it again onto itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm just clipping the middle to help me hold it there, and then clipping my ends. There's a little bit of fuzz here. water resistant canvas, since it does have the PVC, it can fray. So I'm just going to let that down where that was showing. Okay, then do the same on this side. So that way it leaves no raw edge. And in the instructions, she has you stitch down where the opening is. I'm going to try to go around all 4 sides top stitching. So I'll bring that to the machine, and the instructions would still be the same, stitching along that short edge here that is open. I mean, the long edge here that is open. Like I said, I'm just going to go around all 4 sides. All right, so I have just top stitched all the way around, and you can see it's a really small piece here. So now we're going to take our panel with the pocket, and I've tucked my pocket down just so it's out of my way. And I have marked the center at top, and at the measurement given, I have marked in chalk going across. So we are going to center our piece here, and we are going to rivet it into place. And that is so, it should be centered so that way your tab can loop through, come around, and snap back onto itself. So you want to make sure that it is centered, but also centered where this tab is. And I'm going to do the holes and put the rivets on off camera because I've already showed that once on camera, and it's the same process. All right, so I have just put the rivets on. You can see that they do go through to the other side. And there was plenty of padding with the foam in it, so they really set nicely. And now this is so that this tab can come up and through and come down and snap. So now we need to add our snaps to our tab and our flap. So there's a measurement given in the pattern that I have already marked. So similar to the bottom part of the snaps that we did here, I am going to punch my hole. Didn't go all the way through. And for this one, because it has the decorative cap, it's fine that I'm not, like, I didn't want to hide it. So here is the top part. So this is the decorative side. And then we have this piece here that's going to go right on top of it. And that way, that is going to make it so it's able to snap. So this tool set that I had came with the hand setting tools. So if you were going to set this with a hammer, you would put the flat side down, and then you need the tool that has the point, because there's a little tube here that needs to squish down. So you would hammer it like this. I have the rivet press, so I am going to do it that way. I already have it set up. So I'm just laying the cap flat on the bottom and just making sure that this is aligned as I bring it down. And then you can feel it snap into place. And then just to test that it works, I'm going to put it up through that loop and bring it down, and it snaps with no problem. All right, and so I'm going to do the same exact thing for the flap down here. I'm just going to do it off camera because it's the same exact step. All right, so I have just added the snaps on to both the flap and the tab, so they are functioning. And so I'm going to set this aside for now because we're going to work on our gusset starting with our zipper. So I have my exterior pieces and my lining, and I'm just, there we go. I have them, if you can see, the print matches up. So that's what I was just looking to make sure I was doing it correctly. So the linings are here, and I have my zipper. I did not put my zipper pull on yet, just so that way it will be added later. It's just easier and I don't have to worry about moving it out of the way. So the first thing we're going to do is on one of my exteriors, and also I have these interfaced with diffusible fleece. For the gusset and the zippers here, I'm not going to use foam. I think the fleece will be enough, especially with foam in the front and the back. All right, so I'm going to take my teeth and I'm going to put it, the zipper teeth, and put it right side together with the exterior. And I'm just clipping it in place for now. In this pattern, she tells you to use some double-sided tape to hold it, and you can do that, but I'm just not going to use it because it will get in my stitch line and gum up on my machine. So then the next thing is you are going to take a lining and put it right side down, so that way your teeth, your zipper, is sandwiched between. And if you want, you could baste this into place, but I'm just going to sew both at the same time. So since my zipper is slightly longer, I'm just making sure that I'm lining up both the lining and the exterior on the ends, making sure that it's even. Great. And so then I'm going to bring this to the machine and I'm going to sew along that edge using my zipper foot at the seam allowance given in the pattern. All right, so I have just stitched on that edge of the zipper. So now I'm going to fold this open and pressing both sides, wrong sides together. And I'm just making sure that I'm really pulling away from the zipper tape. Sometimes my water proof canvas wants to like bulge right there, and then it can get stuck in your zipper pull. So as I'm pulling that away, I am clipping it to the exterior just to kind of help hold it. And just really giving it a good press from both the back side and the front side, the top side here. All right, so what I'm going to do next is I am going to bring this to the machine and I am going to top stitch along the zipper here. All right, so this is top stitch. I did not seal this edge up yet. And now we're going to repeat the process for the other side. If you're using a directional print, just be mindful how you're doing it so you have it facing the direction you want. And I am going to do this off camera because it's the same process as we did for this first side. All right, so I have just top stitched on both sides of my zipper. And so now I'm going to add our pull. It just is a little easier this way because you don't have to worry about moving the pull as you are stitching or top stitching. All right, and so now that I have that on, if you're going to add foam, this is when you would do it. You would insert it in each of these pieces. Like I said earlier, I already have the fusible fleece. So after you insert that foam or whatever you're going to use for stabilizer, now we're going to bring it to the machine and base stitch all the way around the outside, just holding our exterior and our linings together. All right, so I have just base stitched all the way around, and that will help so that way it's not opening up even more when we're trying to align our gussets. So now we need our gusset exterior and lining, and we are going to put our zipper panel that we just did right side down on the gusset, and it should match up like perfectly. If not, you can trim this down. It's because of your seam allowance, and sometimes zipper tape sizes can be a little bit different from each other. So this isn't really that much of a distance or difference. So I'm just going to center it right sides together. And how I do this is we're going to end up sewing here. So I just check that when I flip it, you want to make sure if you're using directional print, it's going the same direction. So I know that I'm good with that. So I'm just going to clip it here real quick, just to hold it. If you want, you could base this. But again, I'm just going to do all the layers at once. So we have our exterior gusset, our zipper panel right sides together with it. And then now we need our lining, and we need that right side down. So that way both of our linings will be touching each other on the correct side. So it's right side together with the lining on the back of this zipper panel. And again, we are just matching it up with the sides. And here, if this is where you are going to use foam, again, I have some fusible fleece here. I'm not going to use foam for the gusset, but if you are, this is where you want to attach it. And then we are going to sew the side at the given seam allowance here. And we are sewing the foam in. So that way it won't be pinched in the long edges, but it's going to be held in place by the short. And we're just going to repeat that same thing on our opposite side. So I like to sew these both at the same time while I'm at the machine. So I'm just going to quickly put them. They can see where I have some thread caught underneath. And then put my lining right side together with it. Okay, so now I'm going to bring these both to the machine and stitch along both short edges at the seam allowance given in the pattern. Alright, so I have my gusset sewn on each short end. I have my zipper tape overhanging. I like to do that instead of cutting it to the edge. Just in case it ever started to fray, it's more likely to not pull out of my seams. So now we are going to put this so it is wrong sides together for the bottom of the gusset. And we can kind of just start aligning one side and then the other. We can give it a good pull. It should line up evenly as long as your seam allowances were good. And I'm just putting some clips every so often just to hold it into place. Sometimes I have trouble with it lining up perfectly if you're using like a material that has more stretch, but since these are both like a waterproof and a water resistant canvas, neither has much stretch. Oh, and if you're using foam, this is where you would, or no, it's already inserted if you already had it. So your foam would not be sewn along these edges. You want to make sure it's kind of like tucked in out of the seam allowance. But again, I have that fusible fleece, so it's not something I have to worry about. And I'm going to do two things once I'm done clipping this at the machine. We're going to base these edges together, just kind of like we did for the sides of the zipper gusset. But the other thing I'm going to do is top stitch along these short edges here. So I'm going to top stitch along the short edge and base both of the long edges around my gusset. All right, so I have just finished base stitching around the gusset, top stitching on the short edge. And the other thing that I did is I marked the centers. So I lined up the seams here, and so I can mark the center at the bottom and the top, and as far as the left and the right of each side. This is going to help us because we need to attach it to our panels now. So on each of the panels, I've also marked the top and bottom centers and left and right. So if you haven't already done that, you're going to want to do that for all your main panels, the front and the back and the gusset. That's just going to help us keep this even as we sew. And we're going to start with our back panel, right side facing up. And then the gusset, I'm going to put that right side facing in. So our zipper, we want it on the same side as our pocket with the pull going up. So I'm right-handed. I'm going to put my zipper on the right hand side. So that way it is facing where I want it when it goes to the front. I'm just debating. I think I want to turn it and attach it the other way because I'm using a directional. So when I fold this to the front, it's going to be kind of pointing towards the back. I don't know if I can, because if I turn it like this, then my pull would be the wrong way. Well, that's all right. And the gusset will all be facing the same direction. I guess it doesn't really matter which way it goes. All right, so I'm going to clip my 4 centers first. So my center on the gusset, I'm lining that up with my side panel here. And again, they are right sides together. We don't really need it yet, but I'm going to unzip my pull or my zipper just so I don't forget later on. And now I'm lining up. I just grabbed the wrong clip. I thought it was just sitting on my table. Right. So now this side here. So it's always easiest when sewing a gusset to mark your centers and clip them first and then work your way around the rest of the bag. Okay, so now that I got all 4, I want to make sure that my D-rings are tucked in. Anything that could get caught, make sure that it is not where we're going to be stitching. And so now I am going to clip all the way around the bag. And when you get to the corners, you can just ease it in around the corner. I usually clip the straight edges first and then clip the corners last. Tends to just work out better that way for me. But if you have a particular method that you prefer, definitely stick with that. And the gusset should fit perfectly if we use the correct seam allowance. If you need to, if it's giving you some trouble around the corners, you could do slight, very small snips into the curves of your gusset. And that might help you ease it around the corners. But you shouldn't really need to. And I'm hoping that as I'm sewing it, all the fabric will kind of ease together. All right, so you can see here where I'm just going to push this down into that corner. And if I get a slight wrinkle, I'm not going to stress it. Gussets are really, really difficult for me. Especially this is like waterproof canvas, so it doesn't have as much give as like a cotton. So I'm just going to do the best that I can. And so then once I have all the corners, I just have one more. I'm going to bring it to the machine and we are going to sew around the edge. I will sew with my gusset facing up and try to use a stiletto as I go around the corner to help me ease around. Making sure I backstitch at the beginning and the end, and make sure you're using the seam allowance given in the pattern. All right, so I have just sewed my gusset on. I think it went pretty well, except for this corner. You can see I have a little bit where it's not quite at the edge. So what you can do is once you sew it, just pop it so it's right sides out. And then you can check and see if you're happy with how it looks. And so even on that one corner where I had that trouble, it still looks okay, or okay enough to me that I am not going to worry about it. So then in that case, what I'll do is just trim off that excess. So wherever, if it's just not quite even, I'll just clip it even with the curve. So that way, when it's time to go back and do our binding, I'm not going to have any trouble with it bulging out in those areas. So that's one of the things. I used to think that I have to get it like exactly on the end, but you can still have nice looking gussets even if your seam allowance or if it wavers a little bit. So don't let that discourage you. Just pop it out and see if it looks okay. So now we're going to repeat that same exact thing. This is where it's important you have your zipper open. So that's the top of my bag. This is the bottom. So now we're going to do the same exact thing, lining up right sides to right sides. I'm going to follow the same process where I mark or clip together my 4 centers first and then work in the rest. And because this is the same exact process, I am going to do it off camera. I just really recommend, sometimes putting on the second side is a little bit tricky. So I'll reach inside the zipper opening if I need to help align things. Okay, so I'm going to continue clipping it and then base stitch around just like I did for that back side. All right, so I have just attached the back panel. I flipped it out to make sure it looked okay. I'm very happy with it. I don't want to do it on camera because this is such a small opening. I was really worried I was going to bust the zipper. So I actually used a blow dryer to heat this up. So I'm not going to flip it out. But if you want to make sure that you are catching everything, then definitely do that. And so now we're going to add our binding. And I can see there's little fuzzies from the water resistant canvas. So I'm just kind of running this around because it doesn't have that PVC coating. It's not like a thick plastic layer. So it does fray. I just don't want any coming out. So I was debating if I was going to use the bias tape, but I think it's too thin or skinny, the kind that I have. I like binding with fold over elastic. And so I purchased this from Saya Swag. She has the 1-inch wide, and I really like that because it gives you a lot of room. And I actually think it's supposed to be like shiny side in, but that is kind of boring. So I put it shiny side out. So what I did is I looped it all the way around to see how much I need and cut it a little bit smaller. And that way I could sew the edge together and just make this continuous. So what I like to do is I'm going to clip at the bottom. And then I like to just kind of stretch this all the way around. And that little bit of a stretch really helps me when it comes to binding because it keeps it a little bit tight as I'm going along. And then I'm going to clip kind of like how we did the centers first. I'm doing the same exact thing, except I didn't really mark the centers of this bias. I'm just estimating it. I am trying to mark or put the seam right up to that middle line so that way it's an equal amount or equal distance on the front and the back. And then so now that I have my 4, I'm going to clip all the way around, making sure that I'm catching everything. Okay, so now I'm going to bring it to the machine and I'm going to sew it again with the gusset facing up. And I am going to stitch at the given seam allowance, which should put me pretty close to the edge over here. And I'm hoping that I catch both sides. This is why I use, when I'm binding, the same color. I try to match my binding to the fabric and match the thread. So that way, if it wobbles a little bit, it's not as noticeable. Okay, so I'm going to bring this to the machine and attach it. All right, so I have just sewed the binding on and it looks great from this side. This is the back. You can see around the corners, it's not quite as even, but everything caught. And I just love using this because I feel like it's very, very forgiving. So if you want, again, you could turn it right side out, just check that everything looks okay since we're using a little bit larger of a seam allowance for this ground. I'm going to just trust that hopefully it will look good. And I'm going to repeat the same exact step for the other side using the fold over elastic in the same exact way. So I'm going to do that off camera because it's the same steps. All right, so I have just attached the second side, which would be the front. And this one turned out even better than the back. I'm so happy with how it looks. So really, really pleased with it. So now I'm going to turn it right sides out, make sure my zipper is open all the way. And I'm just going to very carefully, I don't want to accidentally bust open my zipper. So I'm not even going to do this on camera because I'm going to go and use a blow dryer and really heat this up since I've used so many layers of waterproof canvas and water resistant canvas to help it become a little bit more malleable and turn it right sides out. All right, we are almost done. I just turned this right side out. I'm really, really happy with it. There's not any like major wrinkles or anything that I can see. So I'm very, very pleased with it. So we're going to set this to the side because now we are going to work on our strap. So we have, I'm using a 1.5 inch webbing like recommended. And instead of a webbing for the bottom, I have a matching piece of my exterior print. And so on the back, I have marked the center line and I'm just going to do the 4-fold method. The top end, I don't need to fold it. It's okay if the edge is raw because it's going to end up in one of our 1.5 inch to 1 inch connectors. So for right now, I'm only going to turn in the bottom because that is going to get folded up behind one of the, after we put the snap hook on, it's going to get sewn where like the slider goes. So, all right. So what I'm going to do is off camera, I'm going to fold this edge in and get my double-sided tape set up just because it's a long piece and it's sticky and it's giving me trouble. All right, so I peeled back the double-sided tape. So now I am just going to fold this to the center line. We're doing the 4-fold method. I didn't add any interfacing or stabilizer. This is the water-resistant canvas. It's pretty sturdy, especially once I get the four folds in. And you can see here where I've tucked in the edge so that it will not be a raw edge. So I'm just going to leave that clipped. And I'm going to do the same thing on this other side. So now that it's folded to the center, I'm going to fold it on itself. And I'm going to start at the end here just so I can clip it, make sure that there's no raw edges showing, and then work my way up to the top.
Okay.
And I'm just taking my time making sure I line up the edge. This is very similar to how I made the tablet tab that has the snap on it. It's the same method. And then once I have it clipped, I am going to bring it to the machine and top stitch it all the way around on both long sides and the bottom. The top part isn't quite so important because we're not going to see that edge. All right, so I have just top stitched all the way around, and this is the raw edge. Here's the bottom. So now we have these two connectors here, And so this webbing it is poly based, but it's woven and it does have loose fibers. So I burn the edge as best as I can. You can also use fray check if you have something like this. And so I am going to put some double-sided tape again. I don't know how well it will actually hold the webbing. But this is how we are going to connect our 1.5 inch to 1 inch. And if you want, you could edge coat this right now. I'm going to do it afterwards. This top part I won't be able to get to because it's going to sit over the strap. But I think because the layer is so thin, it's okay. So I'm going to place this down as far as it can go, but so it's still within the tab. And then I want my 1 inch to come out the bottom here. So if I'm looking from it vertically, it will look like this. And then we are going to line up our second piece over it and just really line up our edges as best as we can. It's a little bit thick because it's 2 layers of vinyl and I have the 4-fold method. So I am just clipping this. I'm going to see teeth marks. They will fade out over time. And if I don't get it completely lined up, I can trim some of this afterwards to try to even it.
Okay.
All right, so that is what is going to connect our 1.5 inch strap to our 1 inch, and I'm going to go and top stitch around this as best as I can. All right, so I have just attached it, and I chose the back stitch because, I mean, this is holding straps and I want it to hold weight. So I feel like if I'm just knotting it, it's not going to be as strong. And you can see there's a little bit from the back side showing. So I'm going to just take my scissors and trim it as best as I can. And now if you want, you can put some edge coat on the sides. You obviously won't be able to do on the bottom or the top. But with the one layer, it's not as thick or noticeable. You would have to do that beforehand. So I'm just going to clean that up real quick and then come back and show you how to do the rest. All right, so I'm probably going to edge coat this after, but now I want to show you how we are attaching our slider and snap hook, because this is going to go on the bottom where we can attach it to the D-ring. So I'm going to start with my slider, and I'm going to go up from the left over that center bar and down on the right-hand side. And I'm going to pull it just to give myself some space to work with and also pop this up, make it easier. So I'm then going to put my snap hook on because this will dangle freely. And so now I need to come back on itself, come up on the right hand side of that slider bar and back down on the left hand side. So if you pull this up, it gives yourself a little bit of more space to work with. And then now what we need to do is, this is why I didn't want the raw edge on this side, because now we need to sew it onto itself. So this is coming over. We only want to sew it onto the bottom. If we sew it to the top, it would make it so that we cannot adjust it. So I am going to put a line of, probably 2 lines of stitching here. I prefer that. You could also use rivets if you wanted. All right, so I have just stitched it on and it blends in real well. So now that has made this part of our strap adjustable. And now I'm grabbing my bags here, and if you were just using a 1.5 inch rectangle ring, you would be able to just loop this through and rivet or sew. If you remember, I had the 1 inch. So I have made this connector. I actually took the same exact piece that we use for this and just put them facing each other and left a little bit of an overlap in the center where it comes down to that 1 inch. So what we're gonna do, and I put some Decoville. If I wanted to, ahead of time, you might want to edge coat here because we are gonna see some of the sides. But I'm not gonna do that just for time. So I am putting this through. And so now it is that 1 inch in the center. And you can see that it's going to come across like this. And so now I am just going, just like we did for this connector here, I am going to insert my webbing in, not all the way down because I want to make sure that it's not sticking out. And I'm going to match up the sides. So I just used the same piece that was already given to us in the pattern to kind of adapt this. And now I'm going to fold this top part out, and I'm going to bring this to the machine and just top stitch around as close as I can to this rectangle bar. But I'm going to backstitch just because I want this secure. So this is a way that you can adapt if you only have a 1 inch rectangle ring. Okay, so I've just top stitched onto this portion here. And as I was top stitching, I was thinking that you could even add a 1.5 inch snap hook on this side and then make it removable. But I'm pretty happy with how this adapter turned out. So now the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 rivets onto this top one and 3 here, probably 2 side by side and then 1 in the center, just to help hold these straps together. All right, so I've just added 2 rivets here and 4 on our bottom strap just to help give this some extra security. And so I have clipped it to the D-ring, and that completes our bag. I'm so excited about this bag. I think it looks so nice. Love that it has the hidden pocket in the back. The front is so clever with the slip pocket here and the extra front pocket. And it's really cool how this opens on the side. You see a lot of slings to the top, and it makes it really accessible for your pockets and slip pockets and the zip pocket in the back. So this was a lot of fun to make. I'm so happy that I was able to test and film for this bag. All right, so we have just finished up our travel buddy. I cannot wait to use it. I hope you enjoy making this bag as much as I did. It's such a clever design. I love all the features. I love the method of the strap. It makes it a little bit more comfortable having that wider strap for the top. All the pockets, there's plenty of storage. That is so important to me in a bag. So thank you again, Kristen, for allowing me to film. I will have all the links in the description for KMG Handmade. Let me know in the comments if you make yourself a travel buddy or if you enjoyed the tutorial. And if you did, I'd love if you subscribe or give me a thumbs up. It does help my channel grow. I appreciate it so much. I'll see you next time. Bye.